Hey everybody, I wanted to walk you through this handout on revision strategies that you'll find in the resources for week 5 folder. And I just want to explain some of these strategies that may be helpful for you as you begin to revise your draft. So the first one here is called WIRMS, and that stands for what I really mean to say. And this can be a helpful strategy if you're struggling with a sentence or a passage that seems a bit clumsy or awkward to you. You don't quite like it. This can help you to make your writing clearer and more accurate. So you locate that sentence or that passage that doesn't sound right. It could be something you've struggled with for a while, or just, it's awkward. You can underline it, circle it, highlight it, whatever, and maybe copy and paste it into a separate document, and then type up 7 or 8 new sentences that keep the idea of that sentence that you chose, beginning with the phrase, what I really mean to say is. So you would start, what I really mean to say is, and this way you kind of refine what you're really trying to say, what your thoughts are. You can also consider performing that same exercise using your favorite sentence. Revision doesn't always come from sentences that you don't like or that are problematic. So by doing this, you kind of hone and refine your thinking. You really get down to what it is that you mean to say. And this is how you can create better meaning and better clarity in your writing. So whatever the final one that you come up with, whatever is the closest to what you're really trying to say, that's the one that you would put into your paper. So that's why I recommend doing that, copying and pasting into a separate document. If you prefer to handwrite it, that's fine too. Whatever works for you. I'm not imposing my method on you, but that's a suggestion, what I really mean to say. This next one is an exercise I actually like to do when I meet with students in a face-to-face class. And it's called says does. So this exercise can help you to identify the various purposes of your paragraphs in your writing so you can address the writing assignment more efficiently. So what you do is you have like 2 columns and you go paragraph by paragraph and you figure out what each paragraph is trying to say. That is, you summarize in a very short sentence or a short phrase what it is that that paragraph is saying. So you're going paragraph by paragraph. So in the introduction, you can say for your introduction, this introduction is saying what my argument is. Essentially, it would boil down to what your thesis statement is, right? And you do that for each paragraph, what you're trying to say with that paragraph. And then you also think about what the function of that paragraph is, what it does, right? A does statement explains the function of the paragraph within the whole essay. So again, your introduction is introducing your argument, right? Then you go to your first body paragraph and you think about what that function is. What are you doing in that? Maybe you're providing background information. Maybe you're talking about the counter argument. It really depends on how you are structuring your argumentative essay. So that is says and does. And this helps you with the overall organization of your writing so that each paragraph can function in an orderly and logical way. And you'll start to see how your ideas flow one from the other. So here I've actually provided a revision example of my own from graduate school. And this was from an autoethnography assignment that I did a few years ago. And there was just this one section that I was just struggling with. I didn't really like it. I couldn't quite get down to what it is I was trying to say. So I have the quote here. What is interesting about these specialized geeks is that while seemingly ostracized by the larger student body, such ostracization tends to be self-imposed. In other words, such students tend to not want to take part in the norms of the larger student body, instead choosing the norms and rituals of their own specialized social group. And so in the margin of my paper, I actually had a comment to myself. I left a note to myself asking, what am I really trying to say here? I think I'm trying to get at the idea that there are social groups which choose to swim against the current who do not go along with the mainstream. I'm not certain ostracization is the word I want to go with. It seems almost too severe of a description. So this is a way for you, when you're reading through your paper, you can start to ask questions of yourself. Is this really what I'm trying to say? So that's kind of like what I really mean to say. But if you're composing in a software such as Microsoft Word, you have this function well, actually, let me call up Word and get a new share here. For just a second, I'll show you. So let me share a new thing here, get into Word. So here I am in Word. If you come to this review panel up here, you click on review, you can actually start inserting comments, right? So what you can do here, and you can also do a right mouse click, you know, say I don't like the word polishing, right? Do a right mouse click and add a new comment, and then just type a comment to yourself, right? That kind of thing. So that's how you do that in Word. I'll stop sharing that, get back to my original document there. So I go in, and here's what I came up with for my final draft. What is interesting about these specialized geeks is that while seemingly excluded by the larger student body, such exclusion tends to be self-imposed. In other words, such students tend to not want to take part in the norms of the larger student body, instead choosing the norms and rituals, the quote-unquote underlife of their own specialized social group. So using this modification of the WIRMS exercise, as well as evaluating my own writing purpose, I was able to incorporate an important concept, that underlife, which related to the rhetorical situation of the assignment. So I was able to discover, hey, you know, I need to pull in this new concept because it's appropriate for the rhetorical situation and my writing purpose for that assignment. So that's just an example of how one way of revising can work for you. There are some other ways too. Another strategy is called reverse outlining. So I'm a big believer in outlines, but I don't like to impose that on my students. I like to suggest it, but I will never require it of you. But I think outlining can be good for certain types of writers. It helps them to organize their thoughts and to plot out a logical progression of how they're going to do the paper. But some people just like to write and then they come back and they take a look at it. So if you're one of those writers where you have already written your paper, right, you have your rough draft, you could go back and then construct an outline from something that you've already written. So sometimes it's easiest just to begin writing and then fix things during revision. You haven't used an outline, you could use then a reverse outline from that draft that you've already written. And so the way you do this, and this is similar to the says does exercise, you go paragraph by paragraph, writing a brief statement of the main idea for each, using subpoints to illustrate how you've supported the idea with quotes. And there's a link here in the paper, which you should be able to hop to, from the University of Wisconsin Writing Center, that details more about reverse outlining. And then this last one here, I just thought was kind of fun, especially for those students who like to write lots and lots and lots of words, and they're going over the word count, you know, and just saying so much about what it is they're writing about. So this one is called Marie Kondo, and I found this exercise on the Write or Die Tribe website. So if you're not familiar with Marie Kondo, she's a Japanese organizing expert. She's big into minimalism, and she has this idea that the best way to choose what you keep and what to throw away is to take each item in one's hand and ask, Does this spark joy, right? If it does not, you don't keep it, you dispose of it. This is not only the simplest, but the most accurate yardstick by which to judge. And that's from Marie Kondo. So what you would do with your draft is choose one sentence in each paragraph that maybe doesn't spark joy. You're not completely in love with it, right? You can strike through that sentence and then reread the paragraph to see if cutting that sentence affects the meaning of that paragraph. If skipping that sentence, if getting rid of it has no negative effects on that paragraph, then you might consider cutting it for your revised draft. And as I said, this is really helpful if you've written a draft that's longer than the minimum required word count. If you are struggling to get to the minimum required word count, I do not recommend Marie Kondoing your way through your draft. So those are, and this is the link for that, that blog. So those are some revision strategies, some different ways that you can take a look at your draft and see how you can go about revising either on a sentence level or on a paragraph level. With Ann Lamott, that's the reading Shitty First Drafts. This one I like to assign to students because, first of all, it's very humorous. She's a very fun writer to read, and of course it's very accessible, and it's just something that helps you realize that you know, the right words rarely flow out and onto the paper, even for published and successful writers. And it's fine and even preferable to write what she calls a shitty first draft in order to create a space where your voice as a writer and those voices in your head, and this is kind of related to something that Ann Berthoff says in the recommended reading, where those voices in your writer's head can be quieted and where invention can flourish. So Lamott talks about a child's draft, you know, that this is the draft where the writer should let it all come out on the page. And then, you know, you just don't edit yourself. You turn off that internal editor, you just write, you get it down, you get it out of the head and onto the page, and then you can come back when you're proofreading and you're editing and you're revising and you're like, okay, you know what? This probably doesn't belong here. Or you may say, wow, this is really great. I can't believe I actually wrote this. So after you read Lamott's piece, you'll often begin to understand that writing is this process that's recursive, and it's very difficult at times, even for published and accomplished writers. So I hope you enjoy reading Shitty First Drafts. So I have this piece from her book, The Making of Meaning, which was also written in 1980, and it's called Learning the Uses of Chaos. As an introductory reading, Berthoff's essay is helpful for those who are beginning the study of various theories of composition, like we are in this class. Midway into her essay, Berthoff introduces the idea that she suggests in her title, The Generation and Uses of Chaos. And she states, quote, and this is on page 69 in the handout, meanings don't just happen. We make them. We find and form them. In that sense, all writing courses are creative writing courses. Learning to write is learning to do deliberately and methodically with words on the page what we do all the time with language. Meanings do not come out of the air. We make them out of the chaos of images, half-truths, remembrances, syntactic fragments from the mysterious and the unformed. I just think that's a fantastic quote. So here we see the simultaneous working of language and thought to create meaning, which justifies Berthoff's assertion that, quote, all writing courses are creative writing courses. The very act of writing creates a semblance of order out of that chaos. It imposes meaning on the seemingly disconnected varieties of input from the outer and the inner worlds, right? We have all those sensory impressions that come at us from the outer world, as well as all the thoughts that are jumbled up inside our heads, right? So that's what I mean by the outer and the inner worlds. Writing is deliberate, it's intentional, it provides a logical means of expression. A visual analogy to this concept of the generation and uses of chaos is to consider a lump of clay, which could be fashioned in any number of ways to represent something previously mysterious and unformed into something recognizable and or meaningful. Likewise, as humans, we have the raw materials or that generated chaos of language and thought and sensory impressions at our disposal, which we then fashion through writing into something ordered with created meaning. Further, Berthoff asserts that, quote, when we teach revision as a phase of the composing process, we are teaching just that, re-seeing the ways out of chaos. And that's also on page 69 to 70. To revise is to re-see, to take another look at what is meant through writing to ensure it's the right meaning that we wish to convey. If the meaning isn't clear to us as composers and as writers, it certainly won't be clear to the reading audience. So in this way, you as student writers can realize that language is potentially chaotic, and your job as creators of meaning is to find the most accurate way of using that chaos to get out of the chaotic state. So I hope that you take a look at Berthoff. It's a short piece, probably only about 5 pages, I think, 5, short pages. And so, yeah. That's Berthoff, and those are the thoughts that have, writing and thinking and revision and making meaning all connected. And I think it's such a wonderful hodgepodge of ideas. So as you move into this phase, this next phase of your writing process where you're beginning to revise, I want you to keep those things in mind and really think about being a creator of meaning and to make order out of that chaos that is in your head, right? So best of luck with your revisions. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to contact me. Thanks. Bye-bye.